Ever wonder which African empire would absolutely crush you in a game of Risk if they had the chance? While you're struggling to hold on to Australia and praying someone doesn't break your chokehold on South America, these 5 African kingdoms were playing empire building on legendary difficulty and winning. From Mali's economic domination to Carthage's naval supremacy, these civilizations developed strategies that would make modern gamers weep with envy. They mastered expansion, controlled trade routes like chessboards, formed alliances that lasted centuries, and conducted warfare that would put your favorite RTS tactics to shame. Let's break down the empire-building strategies of Africa's greatest kingdoms and see why they'd be the players you'd absolutely hate to face across the board. If Mali were a Risk player, they'd be that annoying person who wins through pure economic domination while you're still fighting over territories. Mali's strategy was brilliantly simple. Control the gold, control the game. They didn't need to conquer every territory on the map because they made everyone else dependent on their resources. The empire sat on some of the world's richest gold mines in Bambouk and Bure, but here's the genius part. They didn't just sell raw gold. They controlled the entire supply chain, from mining to transportation to international trade. Their expansion strategy was methodical and economically driven. Instead of random territorial grabs, Mali targeted strategic locations that controlled trade routes. They conquered Timbuktu because it was the Amazon fulfillment center of medieval Africa. Every major trade route passed through it. Mali's diplomatic game was next level. When Mansa Musa made his famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, he wasn't just being religious, he was conducting the most expensive marketing campaign in medieval history. He literally gave away so much gold in Cairo that it crashed the local economy for a decade. Their military strategy was defensive perfection. Mali didn't need to be aggressive because they made themselves indispensable. Why would you attack the guy who supplies all your gold? They built their empire like a fortress made of economic dependency. Attack Mali, and you're attacking your own wealth. The empire's infrastructure was designed for trade efficiency. They built roads, established rest stops, created a postal system, and even had an early form of banking. While other kingdoms were still figuring out how to move armies, Mali was moving goods across continents with the efficiency of a modern logistics company. Mali's victory condition wasn't military conquest. It was economic integration. By the time you realized they'd won, you were already paying them tribute just to keep your own economy running. Songhai was the player who expands aggressively early game and somehow makes it work without overextending. Their strategy was strike fast, strike hard, consolidate later. Under Sani Ali and later Askia Muhammad, Songhai expanded from a small city-state to the largest empire in African history in just a few decades. They understood that in empire building, timing is everything. Songhai's military innovation was their use of cavalry and riverine warfare. They built a navy that controlled the Niger River like it was their personal highway. While enemies were struggling to march armies across the Sahel, Songhai was moving troops by boat, faster, more efficient, and completely unexpected. Their expansion pattern was textbook strategy gaming. They secured their base area first, then expanded along natural barriers, the Niger River, established forward operating bases, and used those to leapfrog into new territories. They conquered Timbuktu from Mali not through a frontal assault, but by controlling the river approaches and cutting off supply lines. The administrative genius of Songhai was their provincial system. Instead of trying to micromanage a massive empire from the capital, they created autonomous provinces with local governors who reported to the center. It was like having AI-controlled territories that generated resources while you focused on expansion. Their military was organized like a modern army with specialized units. Heavy cavalry for open field battles, light infantry for raids, naval forces for river operations, and garrison troops for holding territory. They understood combined arms tactics centuries before Europeans figured it out. Songhai's alliance strategy was ruthlessly practical. They allied with whoever helped them expand and betrayed allies when they became obstacles. They weren't sentimental about diplomacy. They treated it like a game mechanic to achieve strategic objectives. The empire's downfall came from the one thing they couldn't plan for: technology disruption. When Morocco showed up with gunpowder weapons, it was like someone introducing modern tanks to a medieval battlefield. But until that moment, Songhai had perfected the art of rapid imperial expansion. Congo was the master of soft power. the player who wins through alliances, trade agreements, and cultural influence rather than military conquest. Their strategy was based on a sophisticated understanding of international relations. When Portuguese explorers arrived in the late 15th century, instead of treating them as invaders, Congo treated them as potential allies. King Nzinga Nkuwu converted to Christianity and renamed himself João I, not because he was conquered, but because he saw an opportunity to gain access to European technology and trade networks. Congo's expansion was through cultural assimilation and intermarriage rather than military conquest. They absorbed neighboring tribes by offering them better trade opportunities, superior craftsmanship, and inclusion in their advanced political system. It was conquest through attraction rather than force. Their political structure was remarkably sophisticated for the time. The kingdom was organized into provinces, each with appointed governors who reported to the king. They had a complex system of checks and balances, with councils of nobles who could override royal decisions. This wasn't just advanced governance. It was a system designed to prevent the kind of internal conflicts that destroyed other empires. Congo's economic strategy was diversification. They traded copper, ivory, palm cloth, and pottery. They established craft guilds that maintained quality standards and controlled production. When the slave trade became profitable, they initially participated as suppliers, but later recognized it was undermining their own population and tried to limit it. Their military was defensive-oriented, but highly effective. Congo forces used advanced metallurgy to create superior weapons and armor. They understood fortification and built strategic strongholds that could withstand sieges. Most importantly, they maintained professional armies rather than relying on conscripted farmers. The kingdom's diplomatic relationships extended across multiple continents. They maintained embassies in Europe, trade relationships with other African kingdoms, and even sent diplomatic missions to the Vatican. Congo was playing global politics when most European kingdoms were still fighting their neighbors over tiny pieces of territory. Congo's strategy was sustainable empire building, growth through cooperation rather than conquest, economic development rather than exploitation, and diplomatic influence rather than military intimidation. Carthage was that player who dominates the seas while everyone else is fighting over land territories, then swoops in to control coastal cities and trade routes. Their strategic position was perfect: North Africa with easy access to both the Mediterranean and Atlantic trade routes. But location means nothing without the ability to exploit it, and Carthage built the most advanced naval technology of the ancient world. Carthaginian ships weren't just boats. They were floating fortresses equipped with bronze-reinforced rams, advanced steering systems, and standardized construction that allowed for rapid repairs and replacements. They could build ships faster than their enemies could sink them. Their expansion strategy was commerce-driven conquest. Carthage didn't conquer territories to rule them. They conquered them to control their trade. They established trading posts along the Mediterranean coast, down the Atlantic coast of Africa, and across to Spain. Each outpost became a source of resources and a base for further expansion. The military strategy was combined arms perfection. Carthaginian armies included African infantry, Numidian cavalry, Spanish swordsmen, and Gallic warriors. They weren't just diverse. They were specifically recruited for their specialized skills. It was like building a custom army where each unit was optimized for its role. Carthage's economic model was revolutionary. They created one of the first truly capitalist economies, with private merchants, banking systems, and stock-like investments in trading expeditions. While other kingdoms relied on taxation and tribute, Carthage generated wealth through commerce and reinvested profits into expansion. Their alliance system was based on mutual benefit rather than military intimidation. Carthaginian allies were trading partners who benefited from the relationship, making alliances more stable than conquest-based empires. Hannibal's campaigns against Rome were the ultimate expression of Carthaginian strategic thinking. Instead of fighting Rome where Rome was strongest, Hannibal created a mobile campaign that turned Rome's territories into battlegrounds while maintaining Carthaginian naval supremacy. Axum was the player who quietly controls all the strategic choke points while everyone else is focused on flashy battles, then suddenly reveals they've been winning the whole time. Their location was strategically perfect, controlling the Red Sea trade routes between the Roman Empire and ancient India. But Axum didn't just benefit from geography. They actively developed the infrastructure to maximize their strategic position. Axum built some of the most advanced ports of the ancient world. Adulis wasn't just a harbor. It was a complete logistics hub with warehouses, repair facilities, customs offices, and diplomatic quarters. They understood that controlling trade meant controlling the entire supply chain. Their expansion strategy was opportunistic and intelligence-driven. Axum maintained extensive spy networks that provided information about political instability in neighboring regions. When kingdoms weakened, Axum would move in with trade offers, military support, or strategic marriages to extend their influence. The kingdom's military was built for rapid deployment. Axumite forces could quickly mobilize and move across difficult terrain using their knowledge of mountain passes and highland routes. They conquered parts of Yemen not through massive invasions, but through swift, targeted campaigns that secured strategic positions. Axum's technological advantage was their mastery of metallurgy and coinage. They were one of the first African kingdoms to mint their own currency, which gave them massive advantages in international trade. Their gold, silver, and bronze coins were accepted across the ancient world because of their consistent quality and reliable weight. Their religious diplomacy was masterful. Axum converted to Christianity in the 4th century, not just for spiritual reasons, but because it aligned them with the Byzantine Empire and gave them advantages in Mediterranean trade. Later, they maintained good relationships with both Christian and Islamic powers, playing both sides to maintain their independence. If you enjoyed learning about these legendary African empire-building strategies that would absolutely demolish your risk game, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more epic tales of African kingdoms that mastered the art of conquest.